We will record this. This will be available for your consumption afterwards, and somewhere with our marketing department, we'll get this sent out to all the attendees that are currently or at some point during the webinar are attending. The webinar today is one of our many components that goes into our product portfolio with RapidScale. It is specific to email, but I also consider this really part of our security portfolio as well. The partner that we're showcasing today in the product is Mimecast. There are lots of situations where we do everything we can to keep services in-house, products that we manage, products that we architect. Our cloud solution, for instance, is owned and maintained, supported by RapidScale employees. There are situations where it makes sense to go to a third party and leverage a partner to provide those services. In this case, we've partnered with the industry leader Mimecast when it comes to email security, business continuity around email, et cetera. But the customer experience is paramount at RapidScale, so we still maintain first-level support for this particular product. With that, it made sense for us to bring Mimecast in to actually showcase their product. Who best to showcase a product than the company itself? So we've got a couple of participants with Mimecast today that are going to go through and talk to you about their product, go through a demo of the product as well. But as it stands right now, let's go into our presentation. If you have questions throughout the webinar, you can email or you can send those over through the GoToWebinar chat session. Those will be, we will attempt to answer those throughout the session. If we can't get to those or haven't answered those by the end of the demo, then we'll have a couple of minutes at the very end to get those email or get those questions answered on the actual webinar. So as it stands right now, 4.3 billion email accounts around the world. Everybody on this call almost certainly has at least one, if not a dozen email accounts that they leverage. From 2017 to 2021, the global spending on cybersecurity products and services are expected to exceed $1 trillion. That's considerable growth. Number of business emails sent and received per day totals about 122 per user. That's certainly not my email. Mine's quite a bit higher than that, but that's the average, it seems, for businesses. And about 1.7, 1.8 million people access that via their mobile device. We need access to our email anywhere and everywhere, not just when we're sitting in front of our computer. You know, back in the day with Blackberries, I remember the term crackberry, which was very appropriate. Everybody had to have access to their emails. I personally tried to fight that for a little period of time before I realized that I just needed to have access to my phone everywhere I go. And unfortunately, sometimes even on vacation. More than 29 million records were exposed and 858 publicized breaches across sectors, including financial, government, healthcare, education. You know, spam has been around for a long time. The ability to phish with PH to internal employees, where we're attempting to present ourselves as one organization or entity and trick people into sharing email addresses, sharing passwords, sharing account information, has been around for a long time. And those malicious entities are getting more and more creative. Some of the most recent exploits are emailing restaurants with OpenTable and presenting themselves as a customer attempting to have a reservation, and ultimately they're getting important information and inserting malware into those restaurants. So they're spending their day thinking of how they can leverage email to get into these organizations. So again, RapidScale leverages Mimecast in this scenario. We've been a partner with Mimecast for a while now, and what we're going to be talking about is their secure email gateway, how they implement security not only inbound but also outbound. Just because you're worried about receiving threats doesn't necessarily mean that if in the wrong scenario you could be exploited, and then you would be the offender, not intentionally, but you would be the offender. So Mimecast is able to protect email both inbound and outbound. They have a comprehensive e-discovery litigation, compliance, legal hold. They have a whole gambit of compliances and products around different verticals. It's a very mature product, and they've been building this product for quite a while. They'll go into more details on that, of course. At the most base of their product is antivirus and anti-spam. And then we have multi-layer malware protection. Targeted threat protection is really, really cool, the way they handle that, where they do URL rewrites. Again, they'll go into more details on that. And then being able to identify content within emails and automatically encrypting it based on certain patterns, whether it be credit card information or account number strings or things of that sort. They'll be talking about that as well. So you can also enforce disclaimers. So if you'll notice, a lot of times when you receive emails from organizations, they'll have at the very bottom of the email, on every single email, this is confidential information, it's only intended for the recipient, et cetera, et cetera. They can enforce that, so it's not dependent on the user or Outlook in scenarios where maybe they forget to do it, or it wasn't configured properly, or whatever it may be. And data leak prevention, also super, super important. Large file send, that scenario there is you have an attachment over a certain size, automatically essentially uploads that to the Mimecast cloud, sends a link to the user so we're not clogging up the email system, and then they can securely download that file via the Mimecast cloud. With that, that's a quick overview. I will introduce both Adam Rock and John Heger with Mimecast, and I believe John's going to take it over from here.
Cool. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I really appreciate it, and really appreciate the opportunity to be delivering a demonstration to RapidScale and your partners and sales team. Dylan, if you want to switch to the next slide, I can go into a little bit more detail. We do have quite a bit of content that we want to cover today, and we're going to try and squeeze it into the time that we have allocated. So as Dylan explained, we have a multitude of security, continuity, and archiving services. Just at a glance, this is kind of the lay of the land and where we pride ourselves and succeed in the market. We start off with the continuity, having the 100% SLA-backed email uptime and availability. Archiving, we have a bottomless archive with a 7-second search SLA as well. And then our security suite with the targeted threat protection suite, URL protect, attachment protect, and impersonation protect, along with our AV, antivirus and anti-spam. And that's really, just the basis and foundation of what we do. We do have other products in the working, and some things that are interesting and going to be really really awesome when we launch those later on this year. So for now, Dylan, we can switch to the next slide, and I'm going to hand over to Adam LaRocque, who is one of our sales engineers here at Mimecast, and he's going to go through the architecture as well as the live demonstration for everybody.
Okay, great. Yeah, Dylan, if you could switch to the next slide for the architecture overview. I promise this will be the last slide that we share. There we are, perfect. So just if you start to look at the left, right, there's your internet traffic. And what Mimecast is going to do, it's a MX redirect. So we're going to be your first point of inbound. So all of your internet, all your email is going to first go through the Mimecast cloud. That's where we're going to perform all of our multi-layer security and then deliver that email to you, whether it's Exchange, Office 365, or the likes. Now, going outbound, we're going to be your last point of egress. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we scan for sensitive data, make sure that sensitive data does not leave the organization, perhaps with our DLP, or if you intend sensitive data to leave, we're going to go ahead and encrypt it. So there's a lot of things that we can do on the outbound. And then in between is journaling. So not just on the security side, but also archiving. So each message that gets sent and received is added to the Mimecast cloud, where it can go ahead and be kept indefinitely. It's a bottomless, immutable archive. We're not going to touch much upon that because that's probably a little bit more time than we have allotted today, but that's just something else to keep in mind. Now, on the bottom left hand, you can see that we have integrations with Active Directory, ADFS, all sorts of authentication services, so we can go ahead and integrate there. And then all around the bottom are our different plugins, our mobile application support, our plugin for Outlook. We also have a web portal that we host for you. So whatever type of way your customers would like to use the platform, we can support there. So I'm actually going to go ahead and jump through a live demonstration, and I'm going to go through my Outlook here. So I'm going to request presenter rights now, and if you could pass those along over to me, Dylan.
You should have them.
Okay, so let me go ahead here and let's see here. All right, let me go ahead and show my screen. All right, so here I am, I'm in Outlook, okay? And this is where I first want to start talking about our scanning engines. So Mimecast, we scan over 1 billion emails a day. Now, 80% of those are outright spam. So we block 80% of that at our cloud, at our email gateway. We will go ahead and deliver all the other email messages, but for that spam that we will go ahead and present to an end user, we will go ahead and give a digest. We will give a quarantine report of the daily messages that we categorize as spam. Now, these aren't the obvious blatant spam, the Viagra's, the Nigerian prince type emails, and this is what we call gray mail. There's a level of scoring that we do with our spam, so this is going to be that type of spam that scores a little, not as high. This is more of the one man's trash is another man's treasure type of spam. See, these are email messages or senders that I've actually signed up for, right? Target, Bed Bath & Beyond. So spam messages, we can go ahead and determine to deliver to an end user. And in these messages, we can go ahead and decide if we want to, we can see things like who's the sender, what's the subject of the message, when it was sent, and the reason it was blocked. And this is a completely customizable message. You can customize the contents, the wording, and even when it's being delivered. On the far right, we now have the ability, or the user has the ability, if they want to release the message one time into their inbox, block all future messages from the sender, or permit those messages. So the user can go ahead and create their own personal whitelist or blacklist. Now, this won't overwrite anything an administrator sets up, but this gives the user a little bit of more control. Now, because this quarantine might not give us the amount of details that we want, a user can go into the Outlook plugin or in the portal here, and they can actually go ahead and view or manage their own spam. So I can go ahead and click this. This will bring up the messages that we can go ahead and see. And now those messages that I had in my quarantine, I can click on them and I can view them in clear text. So I can see exactly what that email message. Now I'm doing this safely in this Mimecast application. This is a secure HTTPS shell. These messages haven't been delivered to your system at all. You're viewing them safely in the Mimecast cloud. But now I can go ahead and see the email message if this is something that I want to have delivered to me. I here as well can go ahead and see if I want to release or permit or reject. And I can also help train the system. If I want to report this message as spam or as a phishing, this will go to our security NOC where the message will be analyzed, and we can go ahead and put this to our scanning engines to be considered to be blocked further down the road. Now, Mimecast, we use a multi-layered security approach. In addition to our own proprietary engines, we leverage several best-in-breed antivirus, anti-spam engines. And this is why we will go ahead and maintain a 100% SLA on antivirus as well as a 99% SLA on spam. We also have one of the best false positive rates. And part of the reason we're able to do this is because in addition to creating your own personal whitelist block list, Mimecast has what's called this auto-permitted list. Now here is a message, this auto-permitted list are messages that or emails that I have sent. And when I send it to a user, chances are that I am going to receive a reply back from this user. And when I send this out to a user, they're going to be added to this auto-permitted list. Now, if I don't get an email back from any of the users here, they're going to be removed off of this list in 120 days. But because they're added to this list, we're going to bypass some of our spam engines. We're never going to bypass antivirus engines. We're going to make sure that bad stuff isn't going to be sent to you. But this will go ahead and cut down on a lot of false positives. So from here, a user can go ahead and see their white lists and remove things and block things and see all of their rejections safely here as well. Now that is just some of the base antivirus, anti-spam things that you're going to get here with Mimecast. Okay, you'll see a lot of other things here up at the toolbar. Again, we're not going to touch upon archiving, continuity, large file send. We're going to jump into some of the more security settings, and we're going to talk about our targeted threat protection. Targeted threat protection is going to protect you against phishing attempts, whaling attempts, weaponized attachments that we hear about all the time. First, I'm going to talk about our attachment protect. And with our attachment protect, what's going to happen is this is going to protect us against those weaponized attachments. Now, you might have a policy where you're going to go ahead and block certain type of attachments, like zip files and executables and MSIs. It's a good policy to have. But there are some organizations or some departments in organizations that are going to need to receive attachments. And hackers know this, attackers know this. And one organization here that is often attacked are HR departments, because most organizations have a careers@companydomain.com. So they're going to send out a weaponized resume. They'll send out a resume, and the resume will contain malicious macro code. So when a user receives the email message and clicks on it, they're going to go ahead and introduce that payload into their system. Well, with Mimecast, what we have the ability to do is sandbox attachments. What Mimecast will do is, before delivering them to you, is we will detonate them in our cloud, and we will watch to see what happens with that attachment. We will watch to see if now there's going to be registry changes on the system, if it's embedding itself into the web browser, if it's calling out to suspicious IP address, a whole bunch of different things. And if at the end of our scan everything's good, we'll pass it along. And if it's bad, we'll block it and quarantine and notify whomever, and also add it to our database full of threats. And from those attachments that we detect with other customers and across the globe, they're added to our engine. So you're going to go ahead and benefit from that. But there can be a delay in that scanning. On average, about 60 to 90 seconds. But if you don't want to have that delay, Mimecast gives you the ability of creating what is called a save file of the attachment. Because a majority, on average, about 80% of people don't need to actually have the original copy. They just need to view what's in that attachment. So what we will do with save file is we will immediately deliver it, but we will strip out all the bad code, the malicious macros and such. So we will give the user a readable copy. So if I click on that PDF, which it was a Word document, we save file transcribed it to a PDF. Now the end user can safely view this without infecting or allowing any macro code and go about their day. If that end user did need to get the original copy for whatever reason, you have the ability with Mimecast to send instructions where that user can themselves go ahead and request the original file. We won't send them the original without sandboxing, but we will go ahead and sandbox it on demand. And this is all set up for policy. You don't have to go ahead and create a policy for everyone on this. With Mimecast, as an administrator, you can go into the policy and decide who's going to have what particular policy for this sandboxing. You can go ahead and decide whether you want to always sandbox, if you want to always send a save file, or allow that save file with on-demand sandbox. And when you've decided how this is going to be presented, you can go ahead and then determine who the scope. Is this going to be for all users? Maybe we want to sandbox for all users, but we want to send a save file to this OU. Because we're tied into Active Directory, we can go ahead and group this way. And if not, we have Mimecast groups as well, where we can go ahead and apply the policies this way. So it's very, very configurable. Also, from an admin perspective, you have the ability of now seeing or getting great details about what's going on. All the attachments that are being sandboxed, those that are deemed unsafe in the last 30 days. You can see the top safe files by recipients or by file names themselves. The types of files that are being deemed unsafe. So maybe you want to go back and create a policy for that, as well as everything that we're doing, all the different steps, all the layer, all the approach that we're doing when we detonate that file in our cloud is logged here as well. Okay. The next threat I want to talk about are malicious URLs. Now with our URL Protect, this is going to prevent malicious URLs, and this is something that we've seen a lot on, right? It's very easy for an attacker to go ahead and send someone a URL and craft an email where they will go ahead and steal something from a reputable company like Chase. They'll steal their logo, craft an email that looks like it's coming from this company. When a user clicks on this link, they'll go to a page where they'll be prompted to change their password or ask them what's their mom's maiden name, what's the first make and model of their first car, those type of questions. And then thank that person for providing them with that information and then log them off the page, meanwhile, while they're hacking. Well, what Mimecast will do is we will scan the emails that get sent through our cloud, and we will rewrite every URL in the subject and in the body of the emails to Mimecast safe URLs. So should a user click on it, we will go ahead and scan it in real time to see if it's a malicious website, and we will scan it each time that it's clicked. It's important that we scan each time is because hackers will send a clean website and then go ahead and switch it to a malicious type website behind the scenes at another date. So now when a user goes ahead and clicks on that malicious website and we scan it, if it's bad, we'll block them, and if it's good, we'll move them along. But optionally, you have the ability of presenting this page here. We call this our user awareness page. And what the user awareness page is a way that you can go ahead and educate your customers. Now this is customizable. You don't have to use this page. You could turn this page on for a period of time, and you could target different users and groups with this page if you'd like. It's also completely customizable, where It won't say Mimecast up at the top. You can put your logo, your color scheme, change the wording. But this is a way for you to reinforce maybe some training or provide training if you're not. You can see here that Chase website was not bringing me to Chase. It's bringing me to this other website. And in the bottom right-hand corner, it's giving the user some ideas on how we could recognize phishing emails. In the bottom left is a quiz. Now, a user can go ahead and see that this is a bad website and exit, and we will congratulate them for doing the right thing. Or if they're careless and they want to go ahead and accept the risk and continue, well, it's not that we're going to go ahead and allow them. We will still block them and tell them why it was a malicious website. But what's important here is also that all of these clicks are logged and tracked. So now if I go ahead and go back to the administrative console and take a look at our URL dashboard, we can now see all the URLs that are being scanned per day. We can see the most clicked URLs. Again, whether malicious or clean, because what may be clean one day may be malicious at another day. You can see the top offenders or users by click of malicious websites or clean, and graphs and statistics, and all of the different logs or all of the different clicks are logged here as well. So I can see each user, who the email's from, what the URL was, whether that user awareness page was presented, whether they decided to override and go through if it was clicked. So you'll have records of this as well. So that is our URL protection. It's very important that we do it on each click. There are a lot of companies out there that will just go ahead and use a whitelist, blacklist, static types of things, Office 365 being one of them. And it's important because, you know, one website might be a benign website, but if I go to CNN.com, which is a reputable website, it's not that we're maybe concerned that CNN.com will be hacked, but if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you can see a ticker that's ticking. What I have is an add-in here that's showing me all of the third-party extensions. So it's not so much the website that's being hacked, but it could possibly be the ads or the trackers and all of these other things that are being loaded on the site that hackers will go ahead and target to be taken over. So that is our URL protect. The other piece is impersonation protect. Okay, these are socially engineered types of attacks. These attacks don't necessarily need to have an attachment or URL in them at all to try to trick the users. These are sometimes referred to as whaling attempts because they're typically targeting C-level executives or people in the finance department. In this particular example, I have an email, and it's an email from Peter Campbell at Mimecast, who is our Chief Financial Officer, emailing someone in our finance department. And these emails, in this particular one, they're instructing one of the Peters to wire them a large sum of money. And these hackers are typically using terms to instill fear like, you know, this needs to be sent yesterday, or I need this immediately. What's unique about this is not that it's sent from Peter Campbell at Mimecast, but if I scroll in, you might notice something a little bit different about this particular domain name, because it's not actually Mimecast, but rather Mimecast. See, that's an R and an N after the I, and it's only one pixel off from the letter M. And this is something that the industry is called typo squatting, right? Putting in certain keywords or letters to try to trick the user. And this is just one of the things that we will look at in emails with our impersonation protect. Let me go back to the administrator console here and show you some more of the policies on impersonation protect. So if I go to the impersonation protect policy, you'll see here's that similar domain name example that I showed you, that Mimecast. I can go ahead and check for that and determine what character of distance I want to search for. I can also search to see if it's a newly observed domain. This is important because hackers will typically steal a credit card and spin up a brand new domain the day of the attack. Reason being is because that domain does not have a bad reputation because it just got spun up. So Mimecast will see if that's a new domain that's recently started sending mail. That might send up a red flag to us. We could see if that internal username is different, right? Because we're tied into Active Directory, I might be sending someone an email, but they might be using my name from a different domain. That might be suspicious. If the reply address is mismatched, that might be suspicious. And some of those keywords I talked about, like send me yesterday, W2, wire transfer. And all of these can go ahead to be set up to trigger the policy. We can determine how many numbers of hits that this can go ahead and trigger. And once we've determined to trigger this policy, we can go ahead and decide what we want to do with this particular type of suspicious message. Do we want to bounce this message and not deliver it at all? Do we want to perhaps hold this message? Now we can hold this message for review. And now it's up to, say, the administrator if they want to go ahead and release that message. Or you could set it so a group of moderators can view these types of suspicious messages for release. Or the users themselves. Again, I showed you at the beginning that there's a really great end user experience. So if you're training those users and you've built up that level of trust with them, you can allow them to release these messages. Or you could do nothing. And now you might say, well, you just mentioned a whole bunch of different suspicious things. Why would I want to do nothing? It's not the fact that we want to do nothing, but now we've noticed these particular types of emails, and we may now want to go ahead and tag the body, tag the subject, tag the header with something that says, hey, this message looks suspicious. Please contact your organization, or tag the subject line with suspicious. You can make this look and feel however you want using HTML. So now when I show you that example, that message, now I can show you that message, and we've gone ahead and put in some HTML caution and changed the text to say warning with red text, and that we found some suspicious characteristics. Please click on this link that will link to your help desk. That will give you a number before you want to go ahead and wire $50,000 or send out any sort of potentially sensitive information. So that is our Impersonation Protect. Also, not only these messages that are being scanned inbound, but Mimecast has what's called Internal Email Protect. And this is to prevent from compromised or malicious inside users, perhaps that have viruses or attachments and want to send malicious attachments in between. Mimecast, because we will sit at the journaling, we can go ahead and look so users in between your company, not external at all, we will go ahead and scan for those messages as well as scanning outbound messages for malicious attachments so that your users aren't sending bad stuff to the outside world either, so that your customers themselves don't end up on any sort of reputation blacklist. Okay. Another set part of Mimecast on the security side, everything we talked about besides the internal email protect has been on the inbound side. On the outbound side, we have DLP, where we can go ahead and set up certain keywords, where we can go ahead and set up a policy that will look for certain keywords like credit card information, or Social Security type sort of information, and these can be set up with content-based policies as well. So all you have to do is create a policy that's going to look for certain Social Security type sort of information and apply that information, apply this policy to users, so when they go ahead and send them out, they can either be encrypted, blocked, held for review, and tracked. And then on the security side, we have our secure messaging. And so a user can go ahead and craft an email message just like they normally would, and they could put secure in the subject line, or they could use the Mimecast plugin to go ahead and send that message out securely. And they can also go ahead and request read receipts so they know when that message has been sent securely. They can go ahead and have that message set so it cannot be expired or expire at certain dates. So it cannot be printed or forwarded. So you have a lot of security that you can go ahead, the user can go ahead and send out. So if I send out a message that's going to be 100% secure, now I can go ahead and I can see that the message is going to be sent securely and click the send button like I normally would. And as a user, now that I've sent out a secure message, I can go ahead and click on that particular message and I can see the status of that message. So now, as a Mimecast user, that message that I sent out securely encrypted, I can see the attributes of that message. I can see when it's set to expire. I can go ahead and see if it's been sent. And I can extend the expiration, or if it was sensitive and they haven't read it yet or have read it, I can go ahead and recall that message right from here. So all that end user will get is just a stub of that message. So those are just some of the things that Mimecast will do on the security side of things. So that is our standard antivirus, anti-spam that we showed you, our targeted threat protection that protects against weaponized malicious attachments, malicious URLs, and whaling, phishing, impersonation attempts, as well as DLP on the outbound side, and enforcing encryption on the outbound side, whether it's through enforcing TLS or using our secure message portal. There are a lot of other things that we probably won't have time to cover today. We're getting close to the top of the hour. We have about 15 minutes or so for questions. At this point, I'd like to turn it back over to Dylan and Summer over RapidScale to see if we have any questions to answer those for anyone that we have on the line.
So if anybody has questions, sorry, go ahead, Summer.
Sorry, Dylan. Can we go ahead and cover mobile access to the Mimecast cloud?
Absolutely. So in addition to having the Outlook plugin, we have the mobile web portal, and we also have a mobile application. So I have some pictures here of what that mobile app would look like. But here you can see this is some of the archiving features, but we have mobile apps for Android, iOS, and BlackBerry, so that users can send out messages securely through their mobile application, as well as search easily through their current mail and their archive mail. I mean, I have an iPhone myself. I use the Mimecast mobile application all the time to search, because if you have an iPhone like myself and you've tried to look for an email and it's not the last, 10 emails that you've received, it takes forever to find that email or to bring it up, right? We have a 7-second search SLA amongst our plugins, amongst the portal application, the Outlook application, as well as mobile applications too.
Okay, great. And we have another. How does Mimecast compare with Edgeware?
To be honest with you, I'm not too familiar with Edgeware myself. However, that's probably something we could probably table out and get some information for to see, if we have that from our product management team or product marketing team, we will forward that off to you to get a better idea on how we stack up against that.
Perfect. And is the Outlook plugin available for Outlook on Mac?
So the Outlook plugin is not available for Mac. However, there is an actual application for Mac. Okay, so it wouldn't be used with the Outlook for Mac, but it'd be its own application. And there's feature parity with Outlook and the Mac application and in the portal. So the functions that I showed you today, you could still do on that as well. But there is a difference. It's an actual application as opposed to a plugin for Outlook with Macs. Great question.
Okay, and can we discuss the cost?
I can cover that one.
Thank you.
From the RapidScale side, the costs are going to vary based on the different packages that are available. We represent the Mimecast product in bundles. And depending on the different feature sets that you need, there's a different bundle that would apply to that need or requirement. So what I would say is, if you don't already have a contact with one of our partner experience managers, reach out to Summer, who will be able to put you in touch with one, and we can discuss with you what your needs and requirements are, and go from there. But I can tell you that at the very entry level, when it comes to, say, just a security bundle, the cost can be as low as, I think it's actually under $2 per user. If you go into the full bundle of everything from archiving, 99-year archiving, legal hold, e-discovery, all the different security options, that can be a bit more than that per user as it lays on top of Exchange or Office 365. Summer, were there any other questions?
No, I think we're good. That covers it.
Okay. So one thing I'd like to point out, and this is kind of a shift from the focus on just email, and talk real quick about what we can also use the Mimecast solution for in regards to security specific to distributed denial of service or DDoS. A lot of times we'll have conversations with customers that have a fear of being attacked or being a target, or they've been attacked, and from a DDoS perspective, that could be a ransom type scenario, or it could just be straight up trying to take somebody out of service because, well, not because, but by bringing down their internet connection. So one of the things that we do in those conversations about DDoS mitigation is not necessarily what can be put in place to mitigate the attack, but what we can do to mitigate the exposure of the network you're trying to protect. And in the scenario of services that are typically hosted out of an environment, you have email. A lot of times you have web hosting, and then potentially some others. But there are things you can do in both cases with both web protection and email protection to mitigate that exposure. If your MX records are pointing directly to your Exchange server at your location or at your hosting facility, and first of all, it's very easy to determine the MX records of an organization, which is essentially the instructions that the internet uses to route mail to your server. What we can do is put Mimecast in front. I mean, this is what Mimecast does. It just happens to be kind of inherent to the way we implement Mimecast, is that we are essentially putting Mimecast between what the internet sees and ultimately your web server or your MTA, Message Transfer Authority. And by doing that, if a malicious entity decides they want to attack your domain, your email server, they'll do an MX lookup. They'll see that it's Mimecast. They may already know, well, there's no point in attacking Mimecast, or they'll attempt to attack Mimecast. And then, Adam, if you could just go into a brief explanation of what you guys do from a DDoS perspective, so they can understand how we can leverage this in multiple ways besides just email protection.
Yeah, so that's great, because you're exactly right. Because we are sitting in front of your mail host, we are going to receive all of that. So what we can do is when we get flooded with messages like that, we will first go ahead and perform rate control. So, we're not going to go ahead and scan all those messages and be able to deliver them to you in sort of a DDoS type attack. So we're going to act as that buffer for you. We have some engines on our side that deal with those types of things, so that we can go ahead and throttle or queue and spool and make sure that we're basically almost like a shut-off valve for you guys. Just making sure that you're not going to be flooded with these email messages and come under these attacks. And it's the same for your outgoing too. If you're compromised, through some means, and attackers want to use your company or your users' companies as a base for their attack and start sending out millions and billions of emails, your company itself might end up on a blacklist. We can go ahead and we can perform rate control on the outbound side as well to alleviate that. So there's two parts of that. So great question, Dylan.
Great. So I think there was one more question. It's really just back kind of to the pricing area. And I mentioned on the low end, the Mimecast bundles, the least expensive bundle is in the sub $2 per user range. I believe, and again, engage with your partner experience manager to get some details on not only what the packages include, but what a full solution would look like. I believe on the higher end, it's in the $6 range. So that's kind of the span of the entry-level bundle, which I believe is the S1 or security bundle, up to the M2A bundle, which basically includes everything, all the bells and whistles. And I believe that's in the $6 range per user. But again, please engage with your partner experience manager or reply back to Summer after this webinar, and we can absolutely have a deeper conversation about what those services look like, depending on the number of users as well. All right, Summer, is there anything else we have here?
I do not see any more questions, so yeah, we can just wrap it up then.
Well, thanks everybody for attending this week's technical webinar with RapidScale and Mimecast. Thank you to Adam and John for participating from the Mimecast side, and thank you everybody else for joining us today, and have a great remainder of your week.
Great, thank you very much.